Hey, what's up, guys? This is Dr. Science, and I'm currently on vacation. However, I wanted to leave you guys with some nice content to enjoy while I was gone, so I put together this video, which I'm tentatively calling Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, an oral history of the struggle. At first, I wanted to talk about some of the different problems we've had specifically with trying to play the game online, but as I made the video, the scope just kind of grew as I worked on it, and it ended up as sort of a broader look at the struggles of playing this game competitively over the years. Anyways, this is a game that's obviously been very close to me throughout my life, and I hope you guys enjoy it. In my years as a TO for Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, I've had tons of people come up to me and tell me how much they love the game. Similarly, online comments for our tournaments are usually full of people who talk about how much they love it and how happy they are that it's still being played. But the game isn't popular. It never was, and people always seem to have an opinion on why that is. I personally don't think there's one simple answer, but I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the struggles that have come with playing TvC. Tatsunoko vs. Capcom first launched in arcades and on the Wii in Japan in December of 2008. It was a very different game from the one we mostly play in tournaments today, with different physics, no hit-stun decay, which led to most characters having at least some infinites, and missing some of the prominent characters we see a lot in tournaments today. There was a small but devoted player base in the US who imported the game, but it obviously remained pretty niche at that point. The version upgrade, Ultimate All-Stars, was released for the Wii only in January of 2010 in both Japan and the US, along with worldwide. Because the game released a couple of months after EVO 2009, the only year that the game was at EVO was in 2010. And even then, it didn't exactly have a main game feel. After the tournament ended, one of the Cannon brothers grabbed the mic and said, "Well, that was pretty cool. I don't think I've ever seen anyone play that game before." Also, the Japanese scene was potentially hurt a little bit by the Wii-only release of Ultimate All-Stars, as they have a strong arcade-only culture. To this day, there's a scene that still only plays cross-generation of heroes in the arcades, and a scene that plays Ultimate All-Stars on Wii. Even in the US though, which was pretty console-friendly by this point, being on the Wii really hurt the game. The first and most obvious thing about that is that it was really hard to build an install base of Wiis in the FGC. It was a hard sell because there were no other major fighting games that used Wii as a tournament platform except for Super Smash Bros. Brawl, which is potentially the most competitively hated version of Smash Bros.
100% with this choice and stage, especially shrimp into the grab. Wow, that's the worst thing ever. Shrimp into a grab, worst feeling. Pizza King just turns back in.
There were also a number of hardware problems that came with playing on the Wii. Two different arcade sticks were launched for the Wii, the first one being a Hori Wii stick, which was cheaply made and difficult to repair and mod, as the buttons were soldered directly onto the PCB. I personally went through a few of these sticks during my time playing the game. The other one was a Mad Cat stick with TvC art on it, which I actually have right here. The stick was a little nicer than the Hori, and easier to mod and repair as well, as you can tell by my custom Faust button, but still relatively cheap. Also, both sticks unfortunately had to plug directly into the Wiimote rather than into the Wii. You can see the cord here plugs into the Wiimote. Plugging into the Wiimote meant that there was slightly more delay than a wire directly into the Wii, and it also meant you ran the risk of your Wiimote running out of batteries in the middle of a match if you weren't careful. Also, TOs had to figure out how to allow people to use Wiimotes without getting them stolen or having participants accidentally interrupt ongoing matches with connected Wiimotes that weren't currently being used. There was one other common option for stick players, however, which was to use a Mayflash adapter. Mayflash actually put out a pretty nice adapter right here that went from PS2 to GameCube, and since the Wii had a row of GameCube ports, you could use a PS2 stick, commonly Hori Real Arcade Pro or HRAP. Because of all these hurdles, however, there were actually a decent number of players who just use GameCube pads, and to this day, some of the most successful TvC players just use GameCube pads, although I don't know how they do it. But wait, there's more! Even if you managed to get past all of that and actually play the game, the online experience was absolutely terrible. While the delay-based netcode is a little more excusable at the time, since this was years before the discussion about rollback became mainstream, the netcode was still just very bad. Also, the Wii Online service was marketed as a Wi-Fi first platform. The whole service was named Nintendo Wi-Fi Connection after all, so the connections you got were generally very bad. And even that service was discontinued in 2014, after which the only way to play online with a Wii was to jailbreak your Wii and hack it to target the Wii MMFi server, which is still a possibility, although it's not very popular. So you have to go play in person. Fine, you say. Let's go run a tournament. Well, the Wii was also not designed with HDMI in mind, so if you want to run it at a modern tournament on a Wii, you either have to bring your own CRTs or use one of these little guys. And I can tell you guys from experience, if you use one of those, a Smash Kid will materialize from thin air, tell you how it's not a legitimate tournament if you do this because it introduces lag. So the last tournament I ever ran on Wii was Combo Breaker in 2017. Already at this point, we had been working a little bit with the Dolphin emulator, and in July of 2017, the Dolphin devs announced their development of Uber Shaders. Going into what Uber Shaders does is beyond the scope of this video for sure, but suffice to say, it allowed Dolphin emulated TvC to be tournament viable, and I'll link their blog post about it in the description for anyone who's interested in knowing more about that. So we first ran TvC on Dolphin at an in-person event at Frosty Faustings 10 in 2018. And it was a success, although there are still a lot of hurdles. President Magikarp did a ton of heavy lifting on this event in building and transporting an absolutely wild PC to run the whole tournament on, all the way from the East Coast to Chicago, and the controller setup was also almost prohibitive. While being on PC opens up the options for modern controllers hugely, there's always the old PC risk of drivers or other issues causing controllers not to be recognized, and we also had to create and save controller profiles for every single person in the tournament in order to get it to run smoothly. I just want to say, Dolphin is an incredible emulator that we in the community are very fortunate to have, and the net play is still better than the Wii ever was. It's an extremely professional piece of software that we somehow get for free, and it allows us to net play TvC, even with spectator lobbies that allow us to run professional looking tournaments on PC in the year 2020. It also upscales the game naturally, and there's even an HD texture pack available that makes it look even better. But of course, there are also problems. The net play is fixed delay, so you're responsible for setting your own buffer, and if it's not high enough, you just get stutters and lost inputs. Also, you have to find your own opponents. There's no matchmaking, so it is 100% a Discord fighter. Recently, Slippy came out, giving rollback netcode for Melee on Dolphin, leading some people to believe that it would be possible for other Wii games, but unfortunately it does not look likely. I'm going to link an interesting tweet about how rollback for Melee became possible in the description as well, so go ahead and check that out if you're interested in knowing why it works there and it might not work for us. I feel like I've already given 1,000,001 reasons not to play Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, and I haven't even touched on the relatively unknown licenses or Marn. But the game is obviously very special to me. I think that it's one of the most amazing, expressive, and exciting fighters ever made. And it's also been a huge influence in my life. I've traveled around all over the place. I have played and competed with players from all over the world. I have grown as a person and learned more about myself as a result of this game, and I've made lifelong friends. I wouldn't trade those experiences for anything. If you've either had personal experiences with Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, or you've just had a game that's impacted your life in a similar way, let me know in the comments. I would like nothing more than to hear from other people like that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video.